I want to remind you, your colleagues, and all the media who's paying attention to this hearing. The reason we are investigating Hunter Biden has nothing to do with picking on a president's child. God forbid you all are concerned about that issue from the last administration. The reason we are investigating Hunter Biden is because we have credible evidence that Hunter Biden has influenced decisions that Joe Biden has made that puts our country at risk. Why did Joe Biden change the rules blocking Congress from getting the suspicious activity reports to begin with? Again, remember, Maxine Waters passed legislation out of the House to give us the information we're requesting in this resolution of inquiry. Don't misimply the intent of the Hunter Biden investigation. It's because we are concerned about the potential compromise of this administration and the bad policies, especially the energy policies, that they have inflicted upon the American people. The second thing, I invite any member across the aisle to challenge. We have sent 30-plus letters requesting information. Everything from the artwork. I mean, let's be real. If we become the majority and you all are in the minority, are you really going to defend the artwork? Are you going to go out on the line and say, oh, you know, this was a credible art dinner with no American special interest. This wasn't China or anything, but the artwork, the oligarchs that were paid, that paid Hunter Biden millions of dollars, and these oligarchs just happened to not get sanctions filed against them. Coincidence? Or even to the CEFC. These letters that we sent, most of the members of this committee signed on. Do you challenge anything that we requested as being fake news or misinformation? I yield back.
The gentleman.
Dispute our allegations that Hunter Biden was influence peddling with our adversaries. And I'm sure they'll want to have time to speak to dispute that. The comments that you all have already made are going to age about as well as your comments about Louis DeJoy trying to sabotage the absentee ballots, or as well as your demanding that the oil CEOs cut production in this hearing at a time when gas rates were doubling and tripling. So we asked for a lot of preservation of documents. We're going to preserve the comments that everyone on your side has said about there's nothing to see here, when you don't dispute the simple fact that Hunter Biden and the president's brother, now let's not leave him out of the equation, they have been influence peddling for decades. Now, again, you want to call it a Hunter Biden investigation. Again, I want to remind the American people, we are investigating Hunter Biden because we fear that he has compromised Joe Biden, which is compromising our national security. I will conclude by saying this. There are two people who were in business with Hunter Biden who are already publicly on the record as saying that Joe Biden was the big guy, that Joe Biden was getting 10% ownership in a Chinese company. That was Bob Alinsky. He said that in a primetime TV interview. We've all seen that. And Gilliard on a phone call, on a recorded phone message. Both gentlemen were close Hunter Biden associates. Both gentlemen said Joe Biden was the big guy getting 10%. Folks, that's a national security risk right there.
Gentleman, time has expired. Representative Raskin, you are now recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to contrast the laser focus of the majority and the laser focus of the minority. We have been laser focused on advancing the public interest and the common good. We passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which dramatically reduces health care costs for the American people. It limits what diabetics have to pay for insulin in the Medicare program to $35 a month. That's a life-saving breakthrough by the Democratic majority with no support from anyone on their side. We made another record breakthrough by limiting to $2,000 a year the out-of-pocket health care costs of any Medicare beneficiary in the country, and we made a record investment in renewable and green energy to make serious progress against climate change, which some of our colleagues still deny even exists. We passed the Infrastructure Act, a $1.2 trillion investment in the roads and the highways, the bridges, the ports, the airports, cybersecurity. In the last administration, they had an infrastructure day, they had an infrastructure week, they had an infrastructure month. They just didn't have an infrastructure bill. And after 4 years, nothing from them. But in the very first year of President Biden's administration, we got it done. A massive investment in the infrastructure needs of America, which now some of our colleagues across the aisle are trying to take credit for back in their districts, even though they voted against it here in Washington. And of course, we are laser focused on defending the rights of the American people, the rights of American women that have been put in danger by their gerrymandered, Trumpified Supreme Court, which overturned Roe versus Wade, a precedent for more than 50 years in our country. And now they are marching all over America, their anti-abortion movement, to try to destroy women's right to choose their own health care in consultation with their families, to choose their own destiny, to do their own planning about their families and careers and so on. Senator Lindsey Graham introduces a federal measure now to take it away from the states. Originally, their rhetoric was, oh, states' rights. Now they want to take it away from the states and have a national criminal ban on women's right to choose. And in their desperate effort to distract from that and all of the other absurdities of their party, now they come forward with this resolution today. The distinguished gentleman from Kentucky, the ranking member, goes on Fox News and says that he and his Republican colleagues are focused like a laser on the topic of Hunter Biden. That's what they're focused like a laser on. While we're fighting for the common interest, for the common good and the public interest of the American people, with the Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure Act, defending women's right to choose against their theocratic schemes to dictate to the women of America what their personal choices are going to be. Their laser focus now is to distract everybody with...
Will the gentleman yield?
No, I will not. I'm not quite done yet. If I get to the end, I got some time, I'm happy to yield to you. So, they say that they're interested in defending the security of the country, which is why they're laser focused on Hunter Biden. But guess what? They have refused to support any investigation into the worst mass domestic violent assault on the Congress of the United States and the Vice President of the United States on the U.S. Capitol in American history. They had a proposal for an independent outside 9/11 style commission to investigate the insurrectionary violence and attempted coup of January 6, 2021, and the Democrats agreed to it. 5 Republican appointees to that panel, 5 Democratic appointees to that panel, equal subpoena power. And then, after we agreed to it, they pulled the rug out from beneath their own proposal. Why? Because the cult master himself, Donald Trump, said no investigation. He didn't want any investigation. So then we launched a select committee here in the House of Representatives, which they decided to boycott. Fortunately, it is a bipartisan committee with Democratic Chair Benny Thompson from Mississippi, a Vice Chair Liz Cheney from Wyoming. But still they refuse to support it because they're not interested, even though they originally tried to blame it on Antifa. I'd love to hear from them today if they still think Antifa did it, but no, that's not what we found. We found no Antifa involvement. It was Donald Trump's incitement of domestic violent extremist groups.
The gentleman's time has expired. Representative Higgins, you are now recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What an eloquent speech from my colleague across the aisle. America is watching the events unfold in Washington, D.C., and they are in awe that my my Democrat friends can have things so wrong. America is done with elitist, career, arrogant politicians. And one of the pinnacle examples of that is Joe Biden. For God's sakes, the man was elected in 1972. He's been in office for 50 years. He's the definition of a career politician. He's the big guy in the capers. This thing reads like a Dick Tracy dime novel, man. Who would not want to read about the exploits of the grand criminal political family, the Bidens? Who would be surprised that from the loins of the big guy, Joe Biden, a fresh Democrat criminal would spring? Hunter Biden. We're absolutely going to look into this stuff. We're going to reveal it for the American people. My Democrat colleagues are not going to like the results, but there's nothing you can do about it, because this House will once again belong to we the people, and we the people demand accountability out of this body. Madam Chairman, I thank you very much, and I yield the balance of my time to my colleague, Mr. Cloud.